Welcome to Talks with Summer, seeing the world through the eyes of another. Today I have with me Tree Carr. Tree is a published author of 6 books, a TEDx speaker who works in the field of transpersonal psychology with a focus on dreams, death, altered states of consciousness, and psychedelic-assisted therapy. She holds a professional certificate in psychedelics and is also a certified death doula. Tree is a Wiccan high priestess and has studied at the world-renowned Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Science, is a faculty member at the Magical Path School of Witchcraft, and a teacher at the acclaimed College of Psychic Studies in London, UK. Tree has explored the zones of spirituality and consciousness since she was a child. Tree is skilled in divinatory guidance, the tarot and astrology, and has facilitated readings, rituals, classes, and courses spanning a wide variety of esoteric subjects. It is my pleasure and honor to have you here on my podcast today, Tree. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Summer, thanks for inviting me. And I feel honored to be here in conversation with you. And thanks for the intro. I feel like it's lifted me high in the sky. Sometimes hearing it back like that makes you think oh my God, I guess I've been on the planet for a while and done a few things. What can I say? I'm just an all-around explorer, and I'm just really great and glad to be here in the waking dream, which we call life.
Yes. I think it's your humility because you've impacted my life already with the class I took with you, and I'm just so blessed to have you. I'm talking to you one-on-one today.
I'm so happy for it. I mean, it was really good to do those 10 weeks. I think 10 weeks is a long time to get into the conscious dreaming practice and to really explore dreams. But like I was mentioning when we began the course, it's more about consciousness. That is the key. So I guess if I think about life in general and anything really that we experience, I think the baseline setting of understanding what consciousness is and how to be aware of your own perceived reality and consciousness is kind of key to not only dreaming well, but living well as well.
So I would like everybody to know your story, since I heard a little bit of it when you introduced yourself. So where did you grow up? Tell us about your childhood days.
Yeah, so I grew up in the United States and Canada. So kind of moved countries every 7 years or so, kind of like a back and forth between the two. I was born in 1972, so my formative years were in the 70s, and my formative years were on a commune in the Deep South in the United States, in Georgia. And I felt like that was probably a pretty influential and towards how I moved forward in life with the interests that I have, because of the unique sort of upbringing. I had an upbringing that involved no pop culture and no television. That was kind of the zone of my childhood. And access to being a kid outdoors and playing, reading, drawing, playing musical instruments. So I feel like, looking back, really fortunate that my upbringing was just so present, actually, being able to just be in the world. And it was really good not to be on a TV screen growing up. Now we have kids on flat screens and mobile phones. So when I was growing up, I felt sort of like, of course, when you move into a proper kind of school system and you see other kids have TVs and that kind of thing, of course it created a little bit of a, oh no, I'm ashamed we don't have TV, and feeling left out. But I'm really grateful that I was raised that way now, because it feels as though it gave me much more easier access to my dream realms to being more present with life, being more connected to nature, more connected to play, creativity. And looking back now as an adult, those were all amazing zones of exploration, almost like magical zones. So I feel really grateful for the lack of the stimulation of the electromagnetic zones of the television. And so I feel like that really formed me a lot in terms of keeping me rooted in the things that interest me, like consciousness and dream work, creativity. It's allowed me to be able to like really get into reading books. I try to read a book a month, and I really limit my screen time. Like I find I feel really crusty when I'm on screens too much or on the phone too much. I start feeling like a crustiness or like an agitation. You know what I mean? I'm getting like zoned out. I don't like this feeling. So I stop. I don't feel good. So I just go, oh, stop doing that. So I really limit those times being on the screen. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not anti-technology at all, actually. I'm completely pro technology as helpful tools that are advancing things. But I just think from my own personal practice and day to day, I really try to limit the screen time, especially on the phones. Like you can't, sometimes I have to do Zoom calls, and I'm an author, so I'm always, I'm writing, I'm using the laptop and my home computer for that. But yeah, I think my upbringing was moving and traveling, and so I have the travel bug. And then I emigrated to the UK in 1999, but I was like a fully formed adult when I moved to the UK. So I would have been probably about 27 when I moved to the UK, and I moved here because I have ancestry, because my mother's Glaswegian, and it made it very easy to come back to the motherland, so to speak. And yeah, I've been here ever since. So I've lived longer in the UK than I have with any other country. So growing up between States and Canada, it was fragmented. So this is the longest I've been in one place.
So I had a question which goes later on, but I think it would be a good place to ask it right now. Is there any advice you would give your younger self looking back at your life now with the way you grew up? Would you want to change anything or any advice?
Yeah, this is like a good one. I see this going in memes a lot. Like, what advice would you give your younger self? And I always think about it. It's challenging because I feel like I do live a life that has no regrets so far, in terms of everything has been a lesson. Even the challenging stuff, even looking back going, I should have probably chose a different route on that. Still, every route or every path that I've walked down has been a massive teacher. If I was to avoid misery, then I would have told my teenager self to not date that certain boyfriend, like that kind of thing. That would probably be one of the main things, to avoid heartbreak, to avoid misery, to avoid abusive situations. I probably would take my younger self aside and say, hang on a minute, don't date that person. I mean, it's funny because it's like I had best friends who were saying, don't date that person. But there was something deep in me was like, no, I need to go through this, or I need to experience this. So it was almost like going back to those pathways that we look back and go, those were really challenging. They are the biggest teachers. And even those, relationships, the younger relationships, they have been taught me so much. So that would probably be the only thing that I might take my younger self aside and say, hey.
I've had a similar relationship in my life, which a long time I kept thinking that I wish I could change it. I hadn't met that person. But now when I look back, I feel that if I hadn't been through that, I hadn't lived through that, I wouldn't have been this person at all. I know it sounds a little cliched, but I think today when I feel like I'm full circle and it's making sense to me, I'm almost thankful that that so-called negative experience happened for me.
Yeah, I mean, they can be like the biggest teachers. They're not the most comfortable teaching situations, but the biggest one. And hey, you know what? The other person is learning too. I mean, it's just going to happen when two people come together and share an experience, even if it's a really toxic or challenging one. There is lessons for both parties. I really believe that. I mean, some of us will be more conscious in the approach and take on board the lessons. Others might not be conscious with their approach, and they might hang on to bitterness or resentment, or hang on to old patterns, but maybe they'll move through it, repeat it in another kind of situation in life. I do believe that continue to repeat things until we like get the memo, and we transmute it and transform and transcend, and get the lesson, and then we carry on. I do think that in the human experience, that's kind of the zone that we move through. It's like just part of being a human being, right? So a lot of times I think like, what is this existence? Like, why are we here? And I remember thinking that since a little kid. I used to have these big existential questions as a really small child. Like, how did I get here? Why am I here? And just moving through life, I just keep thinking like, this feels a lot like some kind of school, or some kind of learning experience, or some kind of experience where we can affect positive change and evolve things, perhaps. So still trying to work it out at age 52, but always probably will try to work it out.
I'm very curious what motivated you to do what you do, or how did you take this path in life? The inner realms, and I think for me also there's like loss of loved ones and the incidents which I can look back to, which made me more curious to go inside. So was there a turning point, or was that like it was like that since childhood?
I've always been a really curious kid who asked the big questions, and the existential ones. And I have a really deep memory of being a child. Like, it goes really far back. I can remember being in my crib, believe it or not. I remember my mobile really clearly. And I remember the wallpaper, really looking at it and studying it. And I remember being in a diaper, like a nappy, like, crawling around and having my eye level be like low, like adults' legs. I remember the counter feeling so high up and feeling frustrated that I couldn't stand up and reach like up to the counter, like, these kind of perspectives of really small, like a very, before being a toddler. And then really vivid memories as well of my hands and my little tiny feet. I remember sitting in the grass, really looking at my feet, my little baby feet, and being like, wow, I'm some weird little soft pink creature, like just having this almost observer effect. And I always remember like a running commentary, like within my mind as well, although I don't think my language skills were, there yet. So really odd, but I, really vividly remember these things, and I really vividly remember dreams and lucid dreams and out of body experiences, like flying down my stairs and going into the downstairs bathroom, and, these kind of really like clear and present awareness as a really tiny child. So I feel like those zones were always there. But then I had, some mystical experiences as a child that probably helped shape my calling. I remember in Georgia, we lived in a community, but outside of our community zone neighborhood was lots of old Civil War style houses that were really old and abandoned. So these were like built by, you know, really wealthy landowners and slave owners too, unfortunately, you know, that kind of era of the American South. And I remember sitting under this big tree and looking at, you know, one of these abandoned houses, and like they're massive mansions that were, you know, had big porches and pillars and features and things and lots of windows. And no one lived there. You know, it was like abandoned and falling into disrepair. And I remember sitting under the tree as a kid, just, you know, in a hot summer day and looking at this massive mansion and in the windows and just watching all the people. You know, I saw people in the windows, people in that era of dress just passing by the windows and walking along the porch. I got goosebumps talking about it. Walking on the porches and just watching the many layers of existence that was unfolding like on the property. And it just seemed like such a natural thing as a little kid, you know. I would have been like 4 or 5 years old and not feeling scared. Just it felt like just a normal thing to witness. So sorry, I still got the hair on end. It's funny when you talk about these things, it like brings you back into the power of the moment. That really seemed to prepare me for my calling later in life. And then also around the same time, at 4 years old, I had a near-death experience where I nearly drowned. I was pulled out into to the ocean on a trip to the Carolinas. And on one particular day, we were out there and I was just collecting shells, and a sneaker wave came out of nowhere and pulled me out. And just really quickly, and I panicked, and I was panicking as a little kid, like trying to grab onto the posts of the docks to hang on for dear life, but couldn't hang on to them because they were covered in barnacles and they were slicing up my hands and they were like bleeding, and that was traumatic too. And I was like, ah. Anyway, it pulled me out and it was like really perilous. And I realized like I'm gasping. I can't I'm overwhelmed. And it got to a point where I just ended up in this other place that felt really peaceful. I felt like everything dissolved into a oneness. I felt relaxed. I didn't feel scared anymore. And in this place, this different place with a different vantage point and a different energy, my fear was gone, my struggling was gone. But then I was hit with this knowing of my parents and this deep compassion and grief for my parents, because that they would never find me. I really was concerned for them about like, oh, our daughter has been lost at sea and we will never find her again. They could like, you know, this whole realization, like they're not going to find my body, and they're going to be so grief stricken their whole life. And it just became this whole like knowing of like what was unfolding, and a great compassion for my parents. And in those moments of just kind of like, oh, that's the new reality. My father came out of nowhere. He kind of saw what happened and swam out and saved my life. And he brought me back to shore, and that's when the reality of it hit me. And I was like, back in my body, and like shaking and crying. And that's when the somatic kind of release started to occur. My dad put my favorite orange jumper on me, and then he took a photo of me. Like he got into his bag and took a photo. And it was like years later, I think I was about 17, when we were looking through family photos. I asked my dad, I said, hey Dad, why did you take a photo of me in that moment? Like I've always wanted to ask you. And he said, oh, can't you see your eyes in the photo? Your eyes have changed. And I wanted to capture what your eyes look like in that moment. And I looked at it and I was like, never really, really, really looked at it before. And I looked and my eyes were unusual. He said, your eyes are like pure black, like dark voids. And it's true. It's a pretty eerie photo in that sense. And he said, and I also wanted to document, that you're still here, document the moment. So that photograph, it's from 1976. I have it framed and it's on my desk, and it's there to remind me every day of the work that I do, being able to be in a place where you have looked into the void and you have this moment of being in a boundary dissolving place, changes you forever. And also it just helps me as a death doula to be able to sit with people who are also at that point of looking into the void and be able to say, I understand and I know exactly what you're feeling and the threshold of which you are looking at. And I can sit in that place and be calm and have empathy and compassion in a way that perhaps I might not have been able to have if I had not had that experience. And so it set me up. I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. But, of course, at that time, I didn't know that I was going to move into being a death worker or work in the zones of psychic mediumship. I always kind of kept that stuff to myself. And I kind of still do. I don't really tell people or advertise, hey guys, I'm a psychic medium. I have a lot of reasons why I don't do that as well. Although now I've said it on this podcast, but the reason why I don't say that is because there's a lot of exploitation in that kind of, not everyone's exploiting people, but I think there's a lot of care to be had when you work in the death realms. If I was to say, hey, call me up, I'm a psychic medium, I might get people calling up, who are desperate to reach a loved one, on the other side and are so bereaved. And if they sat in a session with me, there's expectations that their deceased loved one's going to come through, and it just doesn't work that way. Like I can't go, hey guys, come on in. I can't just say, hey great granny Gertrude, I'm calling you, come on in, let's have a message. It just doesn't work that way. It's for some reason sometimes they come through and other times they just don't. So it's good for me. I feel like I don't want to create expectations around that. My sessions just work in a way where whatever comes through. But all of these experiences have set me up into these zones, and they're zones of service, really. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, hey guys, maybe I can help you out in some kind of way.
I remember when my mother had passed, and I didn't know yet that she had passed. So that few minutes in between, I felt her spirit, and I felt that it was so big. And I knew at that time that she wasn't coming back, because I told her, come back, we need you. And that gave me this sense that the body is so small for the spirit, and she's so happy and free that she's not going to come back. So that I wanted to ask you if you've ever had that sense, because I often feel that in between the other realms and in between the human, what's in between is our human body. So have you ever felt that the spirit is so huge that after the out-of-body experiences, coming back into the body feels like you have to be confined into a space?
Yeah. Coming back is always like, oh, it's like so slow. You just feel like, this kind of heavy thing. So I felt that in the NDE, that felt like that in terms of coming back and then coming back into the body on that threshold place of death. It felt like coming back, then the body was in shock. You know what I mean? Like it was like, then I could fully feel what this, this avatar was going through. It was just like deeply, the struggle of drowning and then the shock. So, of course, I saw the difference of the expansiveness to then the confinement of being in this like meat suit. And then I feel the same too, like with you were saying about like the out of body experience, very much similar. Like I feel like whenever I have an OBE, as soon as I've exited, like my consciousness, or if you want to use the word spirit, exits the body, like the feeling of like I'm free, and also like a clear energy. It's like my energy is so heightened, so much so it almost feels like you're on the best. You're on like the best kind of like MDMA, or like really elated kind of psychedelic or drug, experience, where it's a peak experience, and the energy is so difficult to articulate, but you feel so like expansive, you feel so free and light that you're able to just whip around and do whatever you like. And then on entry back into the meat suit, it's like, oh yeah, this physicality, back into the aching bones, and like back back into also the physics of this material world of form, which is held by gravity and all of these other things that kind of keep us kind of slow, and we're lumbering through life. So yeah, I've definitely noticed a difference when you're in spirit or you're in pure consciousness outside of the body. It is palpably different.
Can you tell us more about your work as a dream guide?
Yeah, so in dreams, I don't find it too dissimilar from guiding people through the process of the thresholds of death and dying. I think mostly because both dreams and death hold a liminality that are similar to each other. In fact, even the neurobiology behind dreams and death and dying are kind of similar too. So when we're on our deathbeds, our brainwaves slow down from the beta thinking brainwave into more of a theta brainwave, which is more dreamlike, and then a delta brainwave, which is the slowest brainwave that we experience in deep sleep, but also just before we die, our bodies die, we're in a delta brainwave. And dreams aren't too different, sleep cycles and dreams. So we experience also the theta brainwave and then delta in deep sleep. So there's kind of neurobiological kind of similarities in terms of what's going on, the brain waves and whatnot. And the threshold states and the liminal threshold states of consciousness too. People on their deathbeds often experience deathbed visions and, anomalous, strange, and paranormal experiences. And also on the thresholds of sleep, we can have exactly the sort of same thing in terms of hypnagogic visions and phenomena, and also sleep paralysis and whatnot. So there's similar kind of zones of what we can experience physically and biologically. But then also it's elusive to our, the consciousness experience, where there's also these experiences of consciousness on these threshold states. And so as a dream guide, I like to help people feel comfortable in these threshold states and to become more conscious of these threshold states, just like I would as a death midwife, a death doula, is help people feel conscious and more comfortable with the process of death and dying, and how to, prepare for, the exit. I do the same with dreams. Now, dreams I feel are almost like dress rehearsals for death anyway. And so is sleep every single night. So when I guide people towards being observant, say in the hypnagogic state, which is a threshold state right at the beginning of your sleep cycle, we can experience pretty interesting phenomena, including like visions, and we can hear things, and we can have a light show going on behind our closed eyes. And I guide people to feel comfortable on those thresholds, to be engaged, to have their consciousness understand that your consciousness having an experience, and your body is another aspect to your experience, and to train yourself to be able to launch from that threshold state straight into your dreams, or straight into a lucid dream, or into an out of body experience. I also love just guiding people through just the work of dreams, the dream work, part of it, being more of a conscious dreamer, sitting with the content and the material that you receive every single night in your dreams. You wake up and you go, what was that? Like, why was I in that strange land? Or why was I at my grandmother's house? Why was I riding a horse, through a field? All of these kind of zones are valid and rich, full of meaning and language. And so I love to guide people through understanding their dreams and the language of dreams and working with them in the waking times so that their waking life is more enriched, their emotional well-being is more balanced, psychological well-being, but then also just your spiritual life and the exploratory life of consciousness is also unfolding and evolving. So that's why I like to guide through dreams as well. I really love it.
I had a question come to my mind as you were telling, because we talk of dreams, and sometimes we have dreams which are premonition dreams about the future. And I've always had this question in life when I've had dreams where I've almost sensed that this certain thing was happening or this person was nearing their transition time. And it's always made me wonder that, is it like a story which is pre-decided that we are living on, or is time or if time doesn't work like the human brain thinks it works? So that's always been a question in my head. I would like to know what you think.
Yeah, so this all comes down to how does the true nature of reality work? And our current construct of the nature of reality is through more of a reductionist lens. And a lot of people just believe that the material world of form is here because it's just the material world of form, and everything is, time is linear and whatnot. Although there's a lot of new information around quantum theories that would bring in other models of how time works. I personally don't think that there is a fate or a destiny. I think things aren't predetermined. This is just my own cosmology, because I feel like we are here as free beings of will and choice, co-creating within this construct of reality. I see reality as being far stranger and unusual than we can even possibly imagine. I don't believe time is linear. I feel like it's much stranger, maybe more multidimensional. I support like a multiple worlds theory and string theory and quantum concepts and models around time and multiple timelines and worlds. And uh, so why do I think that? I feel like that because I've shown a lot of stuff in lucid dreams, also psychedelic experiences that would make me feel like I experienced the true nature of time. So I feel like a lot of the reasons why I support these scientific models is because I feel like I experienced them in peak experiences and in mystical experiences too. In terms of precognition, which is the phenomenon of being able to sense or see, envision, or dream of an event before it happens. I kind of have a little theory as to maybe how that happens. I feel like it's not like a predetermined event that is fated to happen by some sort of cosmic force or deity or set of gods or God. I feel that what we sense comes into our awareness in terms of a psychic prompt or a precognitive vision or dream is that perhaps we are sensing and receiving information from the future. But the future is now though too, right? Because if time isn't linear, then it's all kind of like happening now in a multidimensional kind of column. So I have this kind of idea that perhaps with precognition, it's like a form of retrocausality. So retrocausality through a scientific theory would state that something in the future could have hold an energy or some kind of effect. So, in science, we have causality, cause and effect. We do something, it has an effect. So something happens in the future, let's say it's a tsunami, and it causes destruction. That event happens, and it has, an effect. There's a causality. But the idea of retrocausality is something in the future can have its, feedback loop back to the past. So my theory is, as a psychic or a clairvoyant, someone who gets information from the future, we get this information only because, not because we have some kind of superpower, we're like, oh, we've been blessed with some kind of divine gift. I think it's more kind of like science-based. We have the event that's happening in the future. It's a tsunami. It causes a lot of energy, because a lot of psychic energy, because there's a lot of emotion. It's on the news. A lot of people's attention is on the news, watching the videos, talking about the event. Now, a whole collective amount of people all putting energy towards that event, the tsunami, lots of people around the world, that holds energy. So if we were to think of it in terms of a timeline or the future, there's a spike of energy around that event. That event has a spike because there's so much psychic energy and attention being put to it. So it's sort of like a disruption in the field. If we were to look at the concept of we are in a unified field, and it's all buzzing along, and sometimes we get these spikes of energy because something happens and all of our energy goes to it. So this spike of energy comes up, and it sort of is so great that it's sort of a retrocausality happens. So it's sort of people, psychics pick up on it. They pick up on it. It comes through in the field through like a vision or through a dream. And we sit there and go, whoa, I think there's going to be a tsunami. We write it down, or we write it in our dream journal, and then 2 days later it happens. And I'm speaking from an example of, I had a precognitive dream of the Indian tsunami that happened 2 days before it happened, with such succinct details as to where in the world it happened. There was a full moon when it happened, all these like very, succinct details that matched out with when the event happened 2 days later. So for me, I sit with it scientifically because I consider myself a rational mystic and not like a woo-woo person at all. So I like to understand how these things work. And so how I see it is that, we had a feedback loop of retrocausality, which was, something happened in the field that we were able to pick up on, and it looped back to the past, to the now. I don't know if that makes sense to you or to anyone listening, but that's kind of like, I like to try to understand how these things work through a scientific model. And I just think it's normal. I don't think it's supernatural. I think it's super normal. I think that we have the perception and the sensitivities to receive these things, just like animals are able to receive, zones of awareness. And speaking of which, a lot of animals exited the area when in the hours before the tsunami, even in the hours before the earthquake. So, how can we explain that? There was a sensitivity there.
Would you say that all the psychic senses and mediumship and all of this is really in essence our true nature, which we are being able to tap into?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's completely normal. I think we are part of Gaia. We are part of the planet. We're part of the Earth, Anima Mundi, the world soul. We're all part of it, and we're intrinsically linked to it, to everything. I think what's happened is human beings have gotten a disconnect from nature and from our animistic connection to all things. And we've lost this connection, therefore maybe perhaps we lost the sensitivities. So it only makes sense, we're devolving out of perhaps sensitivities. We're developing new sensitivities, like getting headaches because we're spending too much time on our screens, and developing hyper agitation because we're spending too much on our screens, or lack of attention spans because we're spending too much time on our screens. You know what I mean? So I think we can evolve our senses, or we can devolve them to. We're really malleable, and that's, that's kind of scientific. But I do think we can reconnect back to them, to these senses, 100%. And we can reconnect. I think these senses are here as part of an evolutionary tool. I think these senses are here to help us be here, to help others, to be of service. They're altruistic senses. They're not to be like a showcase psychic in Las Vegas to show off and make millions of dollars. Although some people do that. So yeah, more power to you, I guess. But I think they're here to help each other out. They're here to for the collective. They're for the collective pursuit of humanity, like not even just humanity, of the planet. People are having psychic visions of like great destructions to our environment. So it's here to help, the forests, the oceans. It's here to help the planet. It's not just a human thing, it's a Gaia thing.
Do people have like a common misconception about your work, which you often encounter?
I think what people hear about, they might think I'm like a woo-woo person, but I don't consider myself woo at all. I mean, I don't mind. I'm not going to get offended if someone says I'm woo-woo, but I really don't identify with that at all. Like I was saying, I feel like I'm a rational mystic. I'm completely up for looking at scientific models around everything. I want to understand how it all works, mind, body, spirit, and also the construct of reality, the true nature of reality. So I do feel also, though, that in order for science to really work in its most beautiful form is to have one foot in the place of discovery, of exploration, like of magic, really, like of being able to say, well, what is? Like, let's go explore. For example, the out of body experience is not backed up by science, nor is consciousness surviving after death, right? But many people have experienced these things. I've experienced it. So have a lot of other people who've experienced consciousness and perceiving beyond the body. And so I feel kind of like, well, I know the science doesn't back it up, but that's not going to stop me from exploring. Like I'm going to keep, like I'm not going to go, oh, that's so sad. It's not proven by science, so I'm not even going to try. It's like, no, I'm going to, like I've had it happen many times. So I'm going to keep trying to explore out of body. I'm going to keep exploring the realms of precognition. I'm going to keep exploring quantum dreaming and shared dream phenomena. And I'm going to keep exploring all of this stuff because it's fun. Like, why not? Right? Like, I mean, I don't have to feel like validated by anyone and like to prove my experiences. Like, sure, someone could be like, yeah, right, that doesn't exist. That's okay. You could say it doesn't exist, but I'm having really conscious experiences. Like, it's not an active imagination. It's like, it really goes beyond, like, I literally come out of these experiences going, like, we don't even know how reality works, man. Like, this is like kind of wild. And so keeping a really open, curious heart and mind, feeling playful, feeling like an explorer, feeling excited. It's like all positive feelings. Like, why shut those down? It's fun. So that's kind of my standpoint. So if people feel like they don't understand or they want to label or box in and use the term woo woo, or I get to like, oh, that's evil, like because you get like certain religious perspectives who say this is from the devil, or this is this is serious evil, or I'm like, really hang out with me for a day or even an hour, talk to me, and then afterwards, like, you're really going to continue to say that I'm evil? Like, a lot of the practices that I teach or even the zones that I explore are for the greatest good. They're held with an altruistic, harmonious and compassionate, and also centered around like unconditional love. Like I see true reality as the vibration of love. Like that's the ultimate reality. And so that's what I would, that's all that I aim for. And I feel like a lot of the stuff I aim for or try to sit in aren't part of, I really try not to be an ego construct. I really try not to be in man-made constructs like religion and fear-based ideologies. And I just like, I just don't feel like it's a good use of energy when there's joy and there's exploration.
From your entire journey in life so far, what would you like to share with our listeners which you feel would be helpful to them?
Okay, we're in a really amazing, improbable situation right now. The fact that we even exist and are alive is absolutely a miracle. And you can run the numbers mathematically on that. The fact that you exist, it is so mind-blowing. And you look back at how many ancestors had to come together in order for you to be born, it's pretty remarkable. And all the moments where it could have not worked out in terms of two people meeting together to create a child, and then, so on and so forth. So, sit with that reality, right? Sit with that reality, how improbable it is that you're here. It's absolute miracle. And it's an absolute exciting, mind-blowing thing. We should be waking up every day going, this is wild. Like I exist and I'm perceiving things. It's so insane and amazing. And turn it around into a positive thing, because some people go, yeah, but my life is miserable and this sucks. And I was dealt this hand of thing called life. And all I have is, misery here and I don't like it. Well, guess what? It's your life and you can actually make it go any which way you want as well. So when you realize the kind of cosmic joke of this whole thing is that we're in this wonderful opportunity to be here to make a difference, to laugh, to love, to experience, to learn, see everything as a lesson, see everything as an opportunity to grow and learn, even the challenges, even the shitty times. Believe me, I've been through shitty times, I know, and dark nights of the soul. And I'm happy I got through them and learned from them. The key is to wake up every morning and go, what am I going to do today? Okay, here we go. I have my consciousness is perceiving things. It's pure magic. And I can, create my own reality through my thoughts. So what kind of thoughts do I want to entertain today? Thoughts of joy and excitement and creativity, or I can't do anything, I suck, and my life is shit. Like, your thoughts are powerful, your consciousness is powerful, the exchanges you have with other people is powerful, and the ego is a trick. It's such a trick. One thing I would say is don't take yourself too seriously. See this life as an amazing cosmic act, a circus, a crazy, absurd film that you're a part of, and start directing it. And don't take it too seriously. Try to stay joyful, try to have a sense of humor, stay humble, open your heart to learning in any which way you can. Keep laughing, keep being playful. I don't know, I could just go on, but I think those are the things I would say.
Thank you so much, Tree. I would love to talk to you for hours and hours, but time is linear here as we speak. And it has been my honor, and you've impacted my life already and reiterated the magic in my life. And I trust this is going to touch a lot more people. So thank you so much. It has been my honor.
Oh, Summer, it's been a pleasure. And the exchange of this energy has been wonderful. Thanks for lifting up my heart today, and hope to journey with you again with more dreams. And everyone listening, thank you for listening and just sending really good energy your day. And may you connect to your dreams. May you connect to your consciousness and live a life that just feels alive and vibrant, because you know what? It is. That's the truth of the matter. And we're living in such an incredible experience, and we're all walking and living and breathing miracles. So embrace the miracle.
Embrace the miracle. Thank you.